Most men with a patchy beard have already made their decision about it. They either gave up on the beard entirely years ago, or they are still wearing it in a way that draws attention to exactly the thing they would rather nobody noticed. The in-between approach, growing it long enough to cover the patches, letting it go undefined, wearing it at a length that never quite looks intentional, is the version that quietly works against them every day. Here is the truth that most men with patchy beards have never heard directly. A patchy beard is not a style problem, it is a management problem, and management problems have practical solutions. The patches themselves are not the issue, the length, the shape, and the maintenance routine around them are. When those three things are right, a beard that grows unevenly can look completely deliberate. When they are wrong, even a full beard can look unkempt. This channel is about classic menswear, timeless style, and the practical grooming decisions that help men over 60 look sharp, composed, and respected. Today we are going into one of the most common and least talked about grooming challenges for older men, the patchy beard, and exactly how to fix it without giving up on the beard entirely. Before we get into the solutions, it is worth understanding why beard patches become more common and more noticeable after 60, because the answer changes how you approach the fix. Beard growth is driven by hormones, specifically testosterone and its derivative DHT. As men age and hormone levels shift, the hair follicles in different areas of the face respond differently. Some follicles slow their growth cycle, some produce thinner, finer hair that appears less dense, and some areas of the face that were always slightly lighter become even more noticeably so. This is not a uniform process, which is why one man's beard thins evenly, while another develops very specific patches, usually on the upper cheeks, near the jaw corners, or in isolated areas of the lower face. The result is a beard that was once full enough that its variation in density was invisible, but now shows clear differences between areas that still grow well and areas that have slowed significantly. This happens gradually, which is another reason many men do not notice it in real time. The beard they are wearing in their early 60s looks similar enough to the one they have worn for 20 years that they never step back and assess whether it is still working for them. Now, here is where most men get it completely wrong. The instinct when you notice patches is to grow the beard longer, to use length to bridge the gap between fuller areas and sparser ones. More hair, the logic goes, means more coverage. But this instinct almost always makes the situation worse. A longer patchy beard does not hide the patches, it accentuates them, because at greater lengths, the density difference between full and sparse areas becomes more visible, not less. The hairs in fuller areas pile up and create thickness. The hairs in sparse areas stay thin and wiry, now extending further from the face, and the contrast between the two becomes unmistakable. The correct principle is the opposite. Shorter beard length reduces the visibility of patches. When a beard is kept at a shorter length, typically in the range of 3 to 10 millimeters depending on the individual, the hairs in all areas of the face are roughly the same length, and the eye has much less contrast to work with. A small patch at a beard length of 3 millimeters is nearly invisible. The same patch at a beard length of 2 centimeters is a focal point. Picture this. A man with patches on his upper cheeks grows his beard out to what feels like a reasonable length, maybe 1.5 centimeters. From a distance it looks like a beard, but in any close conversation, in any decent lighting, in any photograph, the patches are the first thing the eye goes to. The fuller areas of the jaw and chin are thick enough to create context. The sparse upper cheeks are thin enough to show skin through the hair. The contrast reads as unkempt, rather than intentional. Now picture the same man with a shorter beard, say 5 millimeters evenly across the face. The fuller areas no longer have the length to pile up and contrast. The sparse areas no longer have the length to spread out and show emptiness. Everything sits closer to the skin at roughly the same visual weight. The patches are still there, but they are no longer the story. The story is a man with a clean, well-maintained short beard. This is the fundamental fix for most patchy beards after 60. Find the length at which the density variation becomes least visible and maintain that length consistently. For most men, this is somewhere between 3 and 8 millimeters. The exact number varies based on individual beard density and pattern, which is why the best approach is to trim down gradually, starting longer and reducing in small increments until the beard looks most even, then maintain it there. The second element of fixing a patchy beard is shape, and shape matters more for a patchy beard than for any other beard type, because a well-defined shape creates the impression of intention and control that sparse density alone cannot. Here is what a defined shape actually does for a patchy beard. When the cheek line, the neckline, and the overall boundaries of the beard are clean and precise, the beard reads as a deliberate grooming choice, as something the man decided to have, not something that simply grew in whatever way it chose. That sense of decision and control overrides the visual noise of uneven density. People see the shape before they see the gaps. A patchy beard with a clean shape looks like a style choice. A patchy beard with no defined boundaries looks like neglect. The neckline is the most important of these boundaries. It should be defined approximately 2 finger widths above the Adam's apple, a clean horizontal line that separates beard from bare neck. Below that line, the neck should be shaved clean. Above it, the beard continues naturally to the jaw. This single line, maintained consistently, does more for the overall impression of a beard than almost anything else. On a patchy beard specifically, a defined neckline creates the immediate impression that the man made a decision, that the beard exists by choice, not by default, and that impression of intentionality carries the whole look further than any amount of density can. The cheek line matters almost as much. On a patchy beard, a natural cheek line that fades unevenly into skin can read as poor growth rather than intentional shape. A slightly cleaned-up cheek line, removing only the most sparse and isolated hairs above the main beard mass, creates a cleaner upper boundary without making the beard look artificially shaped. The goal is not a razor-sharp artificial line. It is a tidy, natural-looking boundary that guides the eye along the beard rather than across its gaps. And this is where most men get it completely wrong. They define the neckline once and then let it blur over the following weeks as new growth fills in. A patchy beard at the correct length with a clean neckline looks sharp. The same beard 2 weeks later, with the neckline grown in and undefined, looks like a beard in the process of growing out, which is precisely the impression to avoid. The maintenance frequency matters as much as the technique. Short beards need more frequent attention than longer ones because the proportional impact of a few days of growth is much greater at 3 millimeters than at 2 centimeters. Now, here is the part nobody talks about. Some patchy beard patterns genuinely respond better to facial hair combinations than to a full beard worn alone. If the patches are concentrated in a specific area, typically the upper cheeks, a shorter beard that fades into the patch zone rather than trying to fill it can look significantly better than a full beard that exposes the contrast. This approach involves keeping the beard denser and slightly longer at the jaw and chin, and allowing it to fade or reduce in the upper cheek area, creating a gradual transition rather than a sharp contrast between full and sparse. Many barbers call this a beard fade, and it is one of the most effective tools for managing uneven growth. The key detail is that the fade must be deliberate, not just the sparse area growing unevenly, but a controlled gradient that makes the transition look intentional. A skilled barber can do this in a single appointment, and once you see the difference, the fade becomes a permanent part of how you maintain the beard. Alternatively, if the cheek patches are significant and the moustache area grows well, a combination of a clean short beard on the lower face with a neat moustache can create a strong, intentional look that draws attention to the better growing areas while minimizing the sparser zones. This is not settling for less. It is making a deliberate choice that works with what you have rather than against it. Some of the most distinguished-looking facial hair choices for men over 60 are combinations: a close-cropped beard on the chin and jaw paired with a clean moustache, for instance, that look like carefully considered style decisions precisely because they are. And then there is the question most men are reluctant to ask: at what point does a clean shave become the stronger choice? The answer is honest. If the patches are extensive, if no length looks even, and if the beard causes more grooming effort than it creates visual value, a clean shave may simply look better. And a well-maintained clean shave on a man over 60, with good skincare, proper shaving technique, and a face that is otherwise well-groomed, can look sharper and more intentional than a struggling patchy beard. This is not giving up. It is making the same practical decision that good style always requires: choosing what works for who you are now, not what worked 10 years ago or what you wish were true. There is also an intermediate option worth considering: a very close-trimmed beard. 1 millimeter, or even a zero guard on the trimmer, can look cleaner than either a patchy full beard or a shaved face, because it reduces the visual contrast between patches to near zero, while still maintaining the defined facial structure that many men prefer with a beard. At that length, what reads as a patch at 5 millimeters simply reads as a slightly lighter area at 1 millimeter, less contrast, less visibility, more intention. Here is the practical grooming system for a patchy beard after 60. Trim to the shortest length at which the density variation becomes least visible, usually between 3 and 8 millimeters. Define and maintain a clean neckline, 2 finger widths above the Adam's apple. Clean up the cheek line to create a tidy upper boundary. Trim consistently, every 3 to 5 days at most, since short beards reveal unevenness quickly as they grow. And if specific areas remain persistently problematic, consider a fade or a combination style that works with the growth pattern rather than against it. The goal throughout is not a perfect beard. The goal is an intentional one, and intentional, on a man over 60, is exactly what sharp looks like. So here is what I want to know. Have you been managing a patchy beard for years without quite knowing the right approach? Or have you already found something that works for you? Let me know in the comments. I read every one, and I want to know where most men are on this. If you appreciate honest, practical grooming advice for men over 60, subscribe to the channel. In the next video, we are going into the haircut mistakes that quietly make men over 60 look older and exactly what to ask your barber instead. You will not want to miss that one.